Even Will Smith's infamous Oscar slap couldn't keep fans from seeing Bad Boys Ride or Die, which blew away the competition in its opening week. Here's why the action movie's box office numbers surprised everyone. As of June 2024, Bad Boys Ride or Die has grossed $62.7 million domestically. In its opening weekend alone, the film passed the total domestic grosses of Matthew Vaughn's Argylle, Marvel and Sony's superhero bomb Madam Web, and George Miller's muted Mad Max spin-off Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga. Perhaps even more significantly, it finds itself poised to imminently overtake some other surprise hits from this year, including the romantic comedy Anyone But You and A24's political action thriller Civil War. Globally, Ride or Die has taken home about $114 million. It's a decent figure for sure, especially for such a sleepy time at the box office, but one that still places Bad Boys Ride or Die behind Furiosa if The Fall Guy and the sexy tennis drama Challengers. What industry pros will surely be watching now are Ride or Die's numbers over the next several weeks, hoping that the film wraps up with several $100s in gross revenue. Bad Boys for Life ultimately reached this goal, but only after opening to stronger numbers than Ride or Die. This most obvious explanation for the success of Bad Boys Ride or Die is that it didn't have much competition over the weekend it was released. Excluding smaller releases like the Julia Louis-Dreyfus-led surreal drama Tuesday and Rachel Sennett's I Used to Be Funny, the only new release Ride or Die had to compete with was The Watchers. With no new challengers to hinder its breakout box office run, Ride or Die merely had to breeze past recent holdovers. Chris Pratt's inexplicable The Garfield Movie and John Krasinski's ambitious but critically underwhelming fantasy film If both target a significantly younger audience. Meanwhile, Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes are franchise genre films that tend to attract their largest numbers on opening weekend. Both films also might repel casual moviegoers who are newcomers to their respective universes and uninterested in doing the required homework to understand the story. While the first two Michael Bay films certainly always had their fans, Bad Boys was never considered a huge franchise.
Now back up, put the gun down, and give me a pack of tropical fruit bubblicious. And some Skittles.
Even as studios seemed keen on reviving or rebooting any IP with a handful of fans and stars young enough to return, it would have been hard to imagine such a simple buddy cop concept thriving. But shockingly, in the year 2020, Bad Boys was revived. Released in January of that year, Bad Boys for Life proved not only that the series had financial potential, but that it could be made better with a few stylistic revamps. It's almost as though directors Adil El Arbi and Bilal Fallah ran parallel to Bay's own growth as a director without being afraid of creating something ridiculously grand on the way. The end result injected a powerful shot into the arm of the series, netting the studio a tidy $427 million haul while becoming the series' best-reviewed entry on Rotten Tomatoes. It also created a new generation of Bad Boys ticket buyers for Bad Boys Ride or Die. All this being said about Bad Boys for Life creating more fans, we obviously can't forget the longtime fans of the series who have been following detectives Mike Lowry and Marcus Burnett all the way since 1995. Though it was no critical darling, the original Bad Boys was an enjoyable popcorn flick to many and went on to become a massive financial success, raking in $141 million worldwide. For any studio executive looking to print some money, greenlighting a sequel was a no-brainer, even in spite of the uneven foundation laid by the first film. Unfortunately, Bad Boys 2 is to Bad Boys what Too Fast, Too Furious is to The Fast and the Furious, an unnecessary sequel that has more explosions and guns but way less story. Perhaps if Michael Bay had pitched sending Lowry and Burnett on a Tokyo vacation, they would have made a third film sooner. Like later films in the Fast franchise that were made after its own soft reinvention, Bad Boys Ride or Die fearlessly mines its own mythology for plot possibilities. This was clear from the first trailer alone, which revealed that Joe Pantoliano's Captain Howard would be returning once more, albeit from the grave. As happy as new fans will be, Ride or Die is appropriately a treat for the series' longtime fans as well. A popular debate among film fans today is whether or not franchise blockbusters killed the concept of movie stars. If you look at the top 100 highest-grossing lead actors right now, you'll see plenty of stars who have appeared in Marvel movies. Yet even among these familiar but far from ubiquitous names, you'll find a few exceptions: Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, and Will Smith. Bad Boys Ride or Die is only Smith's 22nd highest-grossing movie, just below the original Bad Boys. If this opening weekend surge doesn't turn out to be a fluke, it will likely climb significantly higher. In the years since, however, Smith's star has been in flux, maybe more than any actor working in the 2020s. His infamous Oscar slap turned him into both a viral meme and outright villain overnight.
I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable.
However, Ride or Die was an important moment for Smith's career, one that would mark his return to Hollywood and set the temperature for his future as one of America's last movie stars. The level of interest generated by this unique circumstance shouldn't be overlooked, nor should its potential impact on the film's financial performance. As much as filmmakers like Martin Scorsese bemoan the average moviegoer transforming into an unadventurous consumer, the fact is that there's too much film and television out there for people to waste their time on things they won't enjoy. Fortunately for Bad Boys Ride or Die, reviews were mostly working in its favor. As of June 2024, the film has an overall critic score of 64% on Rotten Tomatoes and a score of 54 out of 100 on Metacritic. Though this feedback won't create the positive buzz necessary to get Ride or Die in contention for Best Picture, it will likely generate just enough to sway those on the fence in an otherwise quiet time for theaters. Many critics praised Will Smith and Martin Lawrence's charisma and comedic chemistry, as well as its inherent value as a fun, noisy summer blockbuster. As Vulture put it in their positive review, Bad Boys Ride or Die serves as passable entertainment. Ride or Die also received a grade of A- from CinemaScore. Even though all previous Bad Boys films received A grades, older conventional wisdom in Hollywood maintains that any A score is a positive indicator of box office success. As most modern blockbusters essentially continue to bring in the same audience demographics that have made them successful in the past, Bad Boys Ride or Die was able to attract the attention of a wider audience. According to demographic tracking reported on by various entertainment outlets, Ride or Die was in part successful because Black audiences showed up in full force to support it. A massive 44% of everyone that saw Ride or Die during its opening weekend identified as Black or African American, a figure that's above other high-profile movies released this year. This is especially true for the film's current theatrical competitors. During its opening weekend, only 8% of the already small audience attracted by George Miller's Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga identified as Black. If performed slightly better during its own opening weekend by this metric, with Black moviegoers making up 10% of its total audience. Another demographic that showed up for Ride or Die was 18 to 34-year-olds, who made up 44% of the total opening weekend audience. Last year, fans of action movies full of explosions and muscle-bound shootouts had Fast X to look forward to. The film was meant to be the beginning of a glorious multi-part final chapter for the Fast and Furious franchise. Now, times are very different. For starters, the absence of a movie of this kind creates a programming gap that Bad Boys Ride or Die was stylistically and dramatically ready to fill. But there's also a question these days of whether or not we'll get another Fast and Furious movie at all. Star Vin Diesel once claimed that Fast X would be a trilogy, only for director Louis Leterrier to douse water on the idea when it made just $704 million worldwide after its budget ballooned to over $340 million. When it was all said and done, Fast X was only the 8th highest-grossing movie in the series. Then there's the fact that a former assistant of Diesel's is currently suing him over disturbing allegations of sexual battery. Diesel has denied these allegations and seems optimistic about the future of the franchise. Audiences are almost certainly picking up on this uncertainty and may be looking for other films and/or franchises to get emotionally invested in. In terms of tone, origin, style, and audience expectations, Bad Boys comes closest to Fast and Furious, more specifically the franchise's critical peak from Fast and Furious 6 to Furious 7. Though Bad Boys for Life fans probably associate directing team Adil and Bilal with their past two entries in the franchise, most others probably know them as the directors of HBO's scrapped Batgirl film. The buzzy project starred In the Heights breakout Leslie Grace as the main character before it was unceremoniously scrapped by the leadership at Warner Bros. Discovery in favor of a tax write-off. If that decision wasn't controversial enough, the insistence from higher-ups that the film wasn't good enough to be released drew skepticism and ire from both long-neglected DC fans and those who were simply looking forward to the movie. After the disappointing releases of The Flash, Black Adam, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods, it began to seem less likely among fans that Batgirl could have been so much worse to deserve cultural deletion. However, with all this came a significant amount of goodwill for Adil and Bilal, both of whom reacted to the situation with class and moved forward. Even Kevin Feige, Edgar Wright, and then forthcoming DC Studios co-CEO James Gunn personally reached out to them. On X, you'll find many accounts posting from their theater seats in support of Adil and Bilal and decrying WB's decision to axe Batgirl. Of course, no discussion of a film's box office success would be complete without considering its marketing. Bad Boys Ride or Die had a modest but impressive rollout, which began in earnest with the debut of its first trailer, which perfectly conveyed everything the final product was aiming to deliver to audiences.
I need nasty Mike. Bad boy.
Like the film, the initial trailer for Ride or Die operated on two levels, the first being the non-stop action it promised potential audience members. Again, there's a brilliant combination of Michael Bay's modern action sensibilities and Dylan Bilal's clearly choreographed and shot combat. From the first time a gun is fired in the trailer, audiences know the franchise has once again been left in safe, skilled hands. Then there's the comedy, of which there's a surprisingly large amount throughout both Ride or Die and its trailer. At the time of the trailer's release, it seemed to some that the studio had made a choice to feature Martin Lawrence more prominently due to Will Smith's controversial cultural status. But in the final film, Lawrence actually does get a rather outsized amount of comedic material to work with, arguably to the film's benefit. If all movie trailers were as clear, stylish, and arresting as the first trailer for Ride or Die, maybe their corresponding box office numbers would look just as nice.